Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on this 30th day of April 2024. I'm still with Senator Joe Nyoto, Eric Nyadimo from the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya, and Honorable Martha Wangari from Gilgil. Let's take a look at the feedback that is coming to us via X at Citizen TV Kenya. Tam Gituku, the hashtag to use this Daybreak on the questions of the nation in crisis. Engineer Lazaro, you're saying that response still below average and exposing the weaknesses so far. Military NOS should now be on standby around notorious landslide areas of Muranga, Kirinyaga, parts of Nyeri, Kisii, and floods-prone areas around the lakeside. That's Engineer Lazaro. Team Kenya is saying that it is high time for Kenya Kwanza to shift from reactive politics and install a countrywide functional emergency response system. Why should DP Gachagua go to Nakuru yet floods are all over? Okay. Kalu Lepario is saying that amidst the heartbreaking floods claiming lives nationwide, it's evident we needed better readiness. Climate experts warned, yet the response seems inadequate. It's crucial. Our president declares this a national disaster promptly to save lives. Those are some of the issues that you're raising this morning at Citizen TV Kenya. Sam Gituku, hashtag to use this Daybreak. We'll get more after this. But Honorable Martha Wangari, so please, let's put this question to rest about Kijabe Dam. And I know you had mentioned it, but let's just do it for the sake of the viewer. And also, where it is situated. Is it in Nakuru or is it in Kiambu?
You know, it is shared. It's a boundary place. You know, when you have a boundary between two counties, you'll find Maimahiu, the affected people are downstream. That is definitely Naivasha. But up here, it's boundary. You can have either people from both sides. But I think because I'm not the expert, I'll not speak about how it is because I've not been there. But I think from what we have received, it is said that it was not a dam. But I think anything can be a dam. Any collection of water can be a dam, whether man-made, whether a gully and a railway line, it can be called a dam. But I think most importantly, Sam, as we were speaking over the break, is our preparedness. Our viewers have spoken about it, even on Twitter or on X. And I think, like I was saying, it's just like immunization. Do you see how much effort we put to actually campaign for immunization? To tell people, bring your kids or take HPV or take polio vaccine. Because it's not natural when you're not sick to go to hospital. And I think that is the thing with preparedness, because we can sensitize people, but when it is not training, people will still will not take you seriously. And I think the warning that someone on Twitter is talking about was done actually earlier for another time, was not even for this time. We thought that time it would have rained. It was light rains, but this time it has come. But I think what Nyadimo was talking about is what is actually making this very difficult to also map out, because climate change has changed even where normally would be the flooding areas. You know, you'll have areas like Kitol Jorai. We've never lost lives in Gilgil. We did last year from flash floods. It has never. In fact, I was talking to Azez there and they were telling me, we settled here in the 60s, in the 70s. We have never seen flash floods. So it is not the usual places where you would be monitoring to be ready for floods or to be ready for. But I think also there is what you can do. I know, like in my constituency, Gilgil is generally a flooding area because it's very flat. And I remember there's a school called DEB. We had to actually do a whole drainage with Kenha because it used to flood and actually make the school not accessible at all. And it was a disaster in waiting. So I think with repeated patterns, this can be done by the counties and by the relevant authorities. We now don't have that problem. The school is accessible. We have drained the water. But we still have some other areas that are coming up that if you drain this water, where it goes, it also causes another problem downstream, which was not expected. So I think it is a responsibility of all of us. And I've also seen someone say that our emergency response was terrible. Why would DP Gachagua go to Nakuru? And I think, you know, being in government is not easy. If DP Gachagua did not show up or the presidency did not show up, then we would say the government is callous, it is not responsive, and it is not actually empathetic to the plight of the people. But I think what the DP was showing, and he said today he'll go to Murang'a, he'll go to other areas, is that the government is on the ground with its people when it is needed and when that help is needed. But I also want to say, sometimes we put too much pressure on, say, the Kenya Kwanza government. But remember, we have 47 county governments. Some are led by Kenya Kwanza, some are led by opposition, but it does not matter. At this point, every person should be doing something. Whether you're a ODM governor or a Kenya Kwanza governor, you respond at your level. Because as you have read clearly in the Constitution, it is a shared function. So we also expect to see a lot of county governments coming up and not just saying we are asking the government. Because, and I think Senator Nyoto spoke about it a bit, and the good thing is that I started in the Senate. So I have seen the division of revenue, I have seen the National Assembly, but I think our problem is not even the money. It is just the commitment, because we give this money over and over, but how much of it are we able to see on the ground? And the other thing I'll say, what Eric said, is that, you know, what he's talking about disaster, digital elevation models. I think our politics is such a way that you have to do something that is visible. And I think that is what, if you go to tell people or the county assembly, we are putting 100 million to do a digital elevation model, they will look at you like you're crazy, because they wonder, what is that? What do we tell people of my ward you gave money to? So I think it's a shift in terms of our thinking, because some of these things you cannot show. It is not a classroom, it is not a road, it is not a hospital. So people will be asking, where did you take our money? And you say you did a program for 100 million. And I will tell you, because I've seen even Nakuru MCAs now, just last week they were complaining that the money for disaster, we don't know how it is shared. We want to see the CEC tell us, how is the money for disaster shared? And I think that is where the problem is, but in terms of getting to where Eric is.
Don't you respond to disaster? I mean, when disaster is visible, you cannot share money. It's about disaster.
That is my point. That is exactly my point. What Eric is talking about is an ideal situation, that we should have a spatial research, we should have a geospatial report, we should have a digital whatever for every county. How do you allocate that money in the county? Because I've seen many people even try, even in the national government, and they're like, what is that? Even getting, say, e-citizen was a problem in terms of getting people to get on that platform. We believe in things we can see. So it takes a whole shift.
So Mheshimiwa Martha, tell me, because it is the Constitution that mandates the counties to deal with land surveying and mapping.
Definitely.
It is the same Constitution that tells them that they have a responsibility for stormwater management systems, to firefight and to also manage disaster. How are they ensuring this? Because you will not give the excuse that MCAs do not understand.
No, I'm just explaining how difficult it is to get to the ideal situation. But in terms of responses, we have seen them respond. Say there's a fire. And you see, disaster is not just these floods. We've seen fires. We have seen, you know, schools flooding or ECDs being submerged or what. We have seen responses in small areas. But in terms of getting to put resources in preparedness, is where my point is. That we must get to that point where we can tell people we need to do a study to ensure that in the next 10 years, we are not hit by a Kijabi or a dam burst, because we have already put mitigation factors. We know where the areas are prone to floods, prone to mudslides, prone to landslides. But I think what I saw yesterday, I've seen a lot of even NYS. If you go to Mathare, I've seen the CS on the ground in Mathare. I've seen NYS come out in Naivasha. I've seen military in Tana River. So I think generally there have been a lot of concerted efforts to work together, because at this point, Sam, we may shift blame, and we'll talk about it this week, then the floods go and we forget about it. But the responsiveness for me is more critical, even as we prepare to think of preparedness, because that will take a whole education to actually explain what it means to even the electorate. That is why you'll get a county would rather buy a fire engine, so because they can show it. They can say, we put 200 million in this fire engine. But if you say you put 200 million in a program, then it's not understood by the public.
Okay, interesting. And Eric, sorry, because you may not be an expert in disaster management, but I want to throw a question at you. Because you cannot plan for what you do not know, or what you do not anticipate, or what you cannot even understand how you'd go about it. What is that you think governments, both at the county and national level, need to do? Because the past 1 or 2 weeks would show you that danger is lurking all around us. And when it strikes, we are caught flat-footed. How would you explain of a better way of dealing with this, but also implementing these functions granted by the Constitution?
I think what I would say is that the number one thing that we need to do is to ensure that we can undertake a regular mapping of the country. And this is a function that can be expensive for the counties because of the amount of money that is required to be able to do it. So it needs to be done through the center, like through Survey of Kenya. But again, if we look at Survey of Kenya, we find that there is an over-concentration on the cadastral survey, which is for the subdivision of land, and giving lip service to mapping, which would be able to resolve some of the issues that we are seeing. For things like flooding, when flooding happens, we need to map that so that we can be able to document and know where the floods waters are reaching, because that would help in planning developments in the future by enabling us to know exactly where the riparian reserves are, or to establish where the highest water mark is, so that if there are developments, then they take into consideration those aspects. It would also be helpful to build things like dikes and embankments that can be able to protect, especially in areas that are flood prone. And we have seen areas like Nyando, Budalangi, which every year there is flooding, but yet we have solutions that can actually be undertaken, and mapping can actually be able to provide that. So I think it is important for the country to dedicate enough budgets that can actually help the authorities, relevant authorities, to provide that data that would help with mitigating some of these disasters. Of course, as you've said, it may not really be possible at each and every time to know where the disaster would actually occur, but at least we can try to mitigate and control some of the devastating effects. In the case of what we are seeing as increased surface runoff, it could be very simple solutions like ensuring that we have afforestation programs. When you have forests like Mau and you find that the trees have been cut, so it means that the trees are not there to hold on to the water. It means that there is increased surface runoff. And this is leading, you saw Mau is a very important ecosystem because that is where most of the rivers are coming from. And that means that it will result into Lake Nakuru swelling, it will result into Lake Victoria swelling, it will result into backflows from other rivers which are generating waters for these particular natural features. So it would be important. I know the government has said that they have the program of planting 15 billion trees. This really needs to be enhanced so that we can protect those water towers and ensure that there is percolation of water rather than having increased surface runoff.
Would you know how far we are with that plan of 15 billion trees?
Not exactly, just from what we have seen on the press, but I do not know exactly how many trees have bin planted so far.
Okay, all right. So then, Senator Nyuto, and I hear you speaking about availability of resources that are being sent to the counties. Honorable Martha Wangari is talking about when you're planning at the local level, you need to see a physical presence. But then again, these roles have to be implemented. How do you hold counties accountable in enforcing some of these responsibilities? Because when disaster strikes, it doesn't choose, it doesn't explain that we know that you are having these challenges. It comes, and Kenyans expect answers and solutions.
Thank you, Sam. And before I get into that question, allow me to comment about these dams on high grounds, because we have now had this one in Kijabi, I know Kijabi some because I schooled there. Kijabi is on a higher ground compared to Maimahiu, actually. And then, and so any collection of water should have worried everybody. I mean, we should have had a way of dealing with excessive water in that particular body of water before it happened. Because
but it appears like we didn't know.
But we should have known. That's what we are saying. We should have known. Because the same case happened at Solai. And so I think the relevant authorities should be very keen on any water body that lies or that is on a higher ground, especially where we have settlements, you know, downstream, so to speak. And so I think this is not something that should happen again, Sam, because of course we know that when a dam, of course, overflows, it will cause havoc downstream. And so these should have been seen. And I think we cannot give an excuse for that. I think also we should have like a call center for disasters, so that every other member of GAO team, like Honorable Mother was saying, knows that when the problem sometime, but they did not know whom exactly to call and report to. So I think I would strongly suggest that we have a call center specifically for incidents and for things that could cause such disasters. So some are going to counties and resources. It has been our position in the Senate all this time that money should follow functions. Because as it is now, I do not know what can be done, but there are so many functions that counties have been given while, you know, counties do not have sufficient resources for such functions. If you talk about survey, for example, and it's good the Constitution says that it's a shared responsibility, but look at the resources allocated to counties, the functions. You know, like health, you know, is a massive thing and a very expensive thing, and there are so many things that need to be done. Counties have wage bills. I'm told it's supposed to be capped at about 35%. But then ideally it is not able, counties are not able to keep it at that because of course, they inherited workers from the defunct councils, and there are so many other functions. But I am not trying to say that counties should not spend their money, the monies sent to them, you know, prudently. I think the reports of the Auditor General, one thing that we have noted is a problem is, you know, these reports come sometimes a whole year, a whole financial year later. And so it's not, they do not serve the purpose that they're supposed to serve, because, you know, timeliness about anything is very important.
Okay.
So I think counties...
Even though it has been explained that the reason why exchequer releases are late is because of also availability of resources.
But now they're not late.
But as of now, thank you, Mother. As of now, there's a very good disbursement schedule that the government has put up. In fact, we used to have, you know, disbursements lagging behind by like even some 2-3 months before. But I can tell you.
Therefore, if we have won that war, then it should not be a problem that the reason why we are not doing things is because the resources are not coming on time.
No. You know, I'm talking about the amounts that go to counties, that they should be raised because...
which you can do in Parliament, can't you?
Yes, what I was saying, what I said, Sam, is that yes, at the Senate, of course, we'll come up with a figure. But then these figures will be adjusted, and of course we understand, depending
adjusted
on...
by who?
You know, at the end of the day, the budget committee at the National Assembly is the one that presents the budget. And so what happens is that some, of course, we do not blame we are not blaming the Budget and Appropriations Committee, because we know, of course, they also consider many other things.
Wait, Senator.
Yes.
Division of Revenue Act and Counties Allocation of Revenue Act comes way before the budget.
Yes.
And you get to give it a nod yourselves at the Senate.
Of course, yes, because you see, we see both houses work together. So this is, Mother will tell you, there has to be that concurrence. So when we give our suggestion or proposal that this is what we would want counties to be given, of course there will be communication from the other side, from the other house. Tell us, you know, we...
Sorry, Senator, let's clear out matters here.
Yes.
The Commission on Revenue Allocation
Yes.
Gives an indication of what it thinks the money should be at.
Yes.
Then you hear from the Council of Governors. Then they go to IBEC,
Yes.
chaired by the Deputy President.
Yes.
And sometimes they actually go to the summit, chaired by the President, to iron out issues.
Yes.
Eventually, whatever figure is agreed upon, or when they have a deadlock, the National Treasury will present a figure. And that goes to the National Assembly, it goes to the Senate.
Yes.
So if everyone is involved in making a decision, how then do you push away the responsibility?
We are actually not pushing away the responsibility. What we are saying is the whole budget process, even with those, even IBEC and Council of Governors and the national government representatives, even as they discuss about this, that every one of those parties would, that if it were going to be possible, that everyone would want should want to give counties more. You know, in this, because it's like a negotiation. When the Council of Governors come to that particular table, they are negotiating for higher amounts.
Okay.
Of course, all the time, the other sides, of course, are also negotiating to have a higher, to push the counties, the Council of Governors, to accept a lower figure. And there has been this back and forth. So what I'm saying is, would the other parties in these negotiations also want to, have that willingness, at least to accept what the Council of Governors request is? So that as we negotiate,
No, I hear you. I'm just wondering, and I want to move away from this issue.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, if the Council of Governors said, for instance, they need, I don't know how much they're asking for this time around, if they said they want a minimum of 400 billion shillings, and the Treasury says we can only give you 395, and the Senate insists on 400, what would happen?
you see, what I'm saying, Sam, is this is a negotiation. When we are negotiating, if I was going to simplify it and maybe liken it, I don't know whether that would be appropriate, to payment of bride wealth, for example, that those paying are, if they could be also more willing to pay more, even as we negotiate, so that we do not negotiate we do not push the Council of Governors so hard. That...
You're not answering my question.
Yes, what is your question, sir?
The Senate stands to protect the interest of the counties.
Yes.
If the Council of Governors is asking for 450 billion shillings,
yes,
and the national government is not willing to give that, but the Senate insists, let them get the 450, what would happen?
Well, Sam, why I keep talking about negotiation is because, of course, we know that the national government also has other responsibilities that county governments do not have. For example, the national government is servicing debts, foreign debts, and that kind of thing. So in this negotiation, there is a way when I'm negotiating with you, I will still push you so that you accept, though it was not, it would not have been your wish.
Then don't you think Senate is failing these counties? Because is it for you to understand what the national government is doing? They have the National Assembly to deal with those concerns. It is for you to protect the interests of the counties.
Counties exist in national government, in the nation, some. And so we also understand
But Senate,
what
the mandate of the Senate is to protect the interests of the counties, not the national government.
Of course, yes. But these counties are in a nation, like I'm saying. So some, I do not know how to put it, but what I'm saying is there a way? Because, of course, you know the national government is the bigger brother. If there could be a way that even when as the Senate we are negotiating for bond, if there could be a way that the national government, being the big brother, you know, stops twisting, if that would be a correct word, twisting counties to accept lower amounts. Because like now, we have very big amounts that are left at the national level with at the Ministry of Health. I mean, why?
Did you just say the national government twists counties to accept less money?
That's why I said probably that may not be the right word, but I think I do not know how to put it.
Maybe
when we are negotiating,
if they are twisting them,
yes.
Why isn't the Senate doing its mandate to protect the interests of the counties?
But you see, there is Section 203. When we are doing this division of revenue bill, we also consider, although you are saying that the Senate should, it's not the responsibility of the Senate to protect the national government. We also consider, and I believe you are there, we also consider the other responsibilities that the national government have, because we also belong to the national government. We also get services from the national government.
Okay. Article 203, the following criteria shall be taken into account in determining the equitable shares provided for under Article 202. First, the national interest. Any provision that must be made in respect of the public debt and are determined by objective criteria. Yes. The need to ensure that county governments are able to perform the functions allocated to them. And I hear you that you're saying
yes,
the national government has obligations.
And the interests.
But you see, yes, the national interest, fine. And there's the question of the needs of the national government determined by the objective criteria. But there's also paragraph D, the need to ensure that county governments are able to perform the functions allocated to them. Why are you ignoring that and elevating the one on...
I'm not ignoring it, Sam. I'm not ignoring it, Sam.
Yeah.
But if you look at that particular section, that particular article, it has 4 sections. I mean, A, B, C, and D. So we have 3.
Read all of them. The 11. I didn't read all of them.
You did not read all of them?
Yes.
So what we are saying, Sam, is if there could be a way, and I'm trying still to if I'm in negotiation with you,
yep,
that if I still can push you to accept. It's not like I'm twisting you. Talk of bride wealth negotiations, for example, where the bride's party maybe could part with more, but they convince I mean, where the groom's party convinces and pushes the bride's team to accept a lower amount of money. So what I'm saying is, can there be, you know, a way that all of us, the two sides, the two negotiating sides, will cry, or we'll have, you know, we'll have some pity also on the weaker party, because of course the Senate is a weaker party. That one I can assure you.
What do you mean?
Yes, it is. All the money bills are appropriated at the National Assembly. You need to ask yourself, Sam. You need to ask yourself, why the Senate? I can tell you why the Senate is weak, and I think that would be a very long debate, because it...
Before you get to that one...
You know, I know you don't want us to get there.
Before you get to that...
I can see where you're going. But Article 203, the one that I was reading, as Article 1, paragraph K, the need, these are factors to be considered, the need for flexibility in responding to emergencies and other temporary needs based on similar objective criteria. And I'll read no further because I think that article actually explains a lot of questions that you are, as the Senate, you're dealing with.
Yeah.
I just do not understand how you'd say that Senate is the weaker party. But Honorable Martha, you've been there, and I also hear from you.
I wish you could have given me just 1 minute.
Maybe
Before Mother comes in. You know, why the drafters of the Constitution 2010, why I think they made the Senate a weak party. And Senate is a very frustrated house, I can tell you that. The Senate does not vet any, for example, any CS, any PS.
But that doesn't make you weaker. I mean,
just a minute, sir.
Your role is properly defined in the Constitution.
It's defined, but you see, like now I chair the Education Committee at the Senate.
Yeah.
And there's also an Education Committee at the National Assembly.
Yeah.
You know, when I, for example, and I'm not here to lament, when, for example, my committee invites the CS to appear before it, the CS knows that the Senate cannot impeach him, for example. The Senate does not vet the CS, does not vet the PS. The Senate does not appropriate any, I mean, the Senate, you know, power, effectiveness, of course, comes with money and power. So there's no power in the Senate, there's no money in the Senate, you know, compared to the National Assembly. Okay. That is what I was trying to say. So I think Mother can come in.
Yeah.
Sam,
I wanted to comment. I wanted to comment before I go to the sibling rivalry between the Senate and the National Assembly. I think I wanted to comment in terms of the county allocations because we also come from counties. I may represent Gilgil, but it's in Nakuru County. So it's in our interest that any money that goes to the county is put into good use. I think I hear what Senator Nyuto is raising because it's always a consensus building process in terms of the amount that eventually will go to the counties. But I think what we should be talking about, Sam, is we have taken 400 billion of shillings to counties. Yeah. Let's even imagine how much of that has gone to disaster management. Because I think the Senate has its work cut out. If you ask me, look at the structure of CDF. We have what? Countrywide, we get 44 billion. We know 2%, if you get 150 million in a constituency, 2% will go to your emergency responses. That is about 3 million. So you'll come to my records, I'll tell you, a toilet collapsed in DEB. In DEB Primary School, we did a toilet worth 500,000. I can show what exactly has gone to emergency. And I think that is what counties don't have. That structure, and I think Senate should actually, it's about time, that structure to tell you how much goes to health. Because you cannot negotiate as a block and say we just want more money. More money for what? Because at the county level, we are not seeing it. So we are asking how much goes to health. Even if you put a percentage, you can say by the Abuja Declaration, health gets what, 15%. Yeah, 15% of the budget, or more as you wish, depending on where you come from. Go to agriculture. How much of that money goes to agriculture? Take your wage bill. How much goes to your wage bill? Because I think counties have become employment bureaus, if you ask me. You take money, and they take 80% to pay salaries. You get a governor who has employed people and have security of tenure. In 5 years, Nakuru is on their third governor. The first governor had staff, that were left in the system. The second governor has come, has another layer of staff, because everyone comes and wants to put people in the system. The third governor is there now, has staff. So you have a whole baggage of people that eat into your money that you get from the national government. How much goes to development? Look at the COB report. There is actually no county that does 30%. To development, as the PFM has said we should do, at least 30% of development. So I think the question the Senate should be asking, out of this 2%, I think, which is proposed, I'm not sure of that, I'll put a caveat, to go to disaster, how many counties have actually put that amount? Because 2% of 15 billion or 7 billion is not small money. How much has gone to disaster management? And I think the bigger question in terms of the issues raised by Senator Nyuto, because if you ask me, I don't even know why the Senate even invites CSs on the floor. Because they should invite governors. Because they oversight the counties. And I think that is, we are trying to scramble for some space that is not existent. He himself is saying the CS will come, it's a talk show. He knows there's nothing that you can do. You cannot take money. You cannot have any power of the budget, but you have the power of the budget to the counties because the county allocation is on your side. I think we just need to pick not many roles, just pick a few and put the governors on their toes. And I think that will actually help to sort out the sibling rivalry issue between the National Assembly and the Senate. And more importantly, we serve the same people. And I have seen people move from the Senate to the National Assembly, like myself. I've seen people move from the National Assembly to the Senate.
Do you enjoy your work better at the National Assembly?
It is different. It is different. I loved being in the Senate. It is different. You know, it is just different from what I was doing in the Senate. That time I would focus in the counties, but I was nominated. I didn't have much say because I wasn't elected by the vote, and voting is by delegation. But I was able to actually look at this COB.
What was your delegation that time?
That time, Nakuru.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it was Nakuru. And that time, and you see, we were how many? We were myself as a women rep, current women rep, so we were like 3. Actually, we were 4 because we had a PWD in the Nakuru delegation. So the voting right will go to the elected senator. But anyway, the work at the Senate was interesting because even these reports that come from the Auditor General, they are now something the COB is doing, which is very unique. The Controller of Budget is churning reports every time right now. And they're actually more real time than auditors' reports. So let us interrogate these ones and table reports on them. If I represent Nakuru, let me table my report that I've interrogated the COB report, how much has gone to this, how much has gone to this. But more importantly, we need a law that actually classifies how much per percentage. Let them take the model of NGCDF. As we know, even if you want to take money from, you can't, because we know education takes 40%, bursary takes 35%. We know what goes where, and it is structured that way. So if we have that for the counties, accountability may improve. Then that way you can be able to ask, I need 10 billion for health. I have 5 billion. Can I get 5 more? Because you can't push a blind figure.
All right, you say a few things about the wage bill. I just wanted to reflect on the figures because according to the Control of Budget reports for the previous financial year, the county spent 195 billion shillings on a wage bill. The total wage bill for the country was 1.1. So you can see the huge chunk of 195 billion at the county, 1.1 trillion at the national level. That is inclusive of the counties, meaning that the national government was taking more than 900 billion shillings. In terms of percentage, the wage bill at the counties is 45%. The national is 47%, meaning at the national level it's slightly higher. But all the same, Eric, you wanted to say something about financing of these services and the challenges that we have, especially what Senator Nyeto is highlighting.
Yeah, I think when you started off, you indicated some of the county functions, including ensuring that there are proper stormwater drains. And if you look at a county like Nairobi, this is something that should be done by the developers, so that the work of the county would then be to police or to regulate that particular aspect. But we don't see this being done. So it will not just be that the counties have to get their money that they have been allocated from the national government to undertake those kind of functions. They can pass that kind of requirement to the developers. So we have seen recently that Governor Sakaja has indicated that they would allow, say, 15-story buildings in Nairobi. But if you already look, you find that the road to support that kind of an infrastructure is not there. The stormwater drain to support that kind of an infrastructure is not there. The sewer system is actually not there. So why not pass these expenses to that developer so that they can ensure that they put a proper road, they can ensure that they have proper drainage, they can ensure that they have proper storm sewer. And the counties should not just look at development applications as a way of making money, because you think that by approving 1,000 or 10,000 developments, then you are increasing your own source revenue. I think that is a thinking that needs to be changed, and counties need to look at how they can be able to provide services to the people through collection of rates, and also how they can ensure that developers do their tasks of providing the requisite infrastructure and even maintaining those kind of infrastructure. And this would really help with the kind of flooding that we have seen in some areas. We are saying that some are, of course, naturally occurring, but there are others which are really man-made that can be sorted out through these kind of measures.
Interesting. And of course, we've also seen challenges. It's not just in the areas of Nakuru or Murang'a, but also in Tana River. And we saw people drowning there. They were trying to run through a boat. It capsized, and the death toll has been unimaginable. And now the authorities are saying that that's a person who was not authorized to even operate the boat right there. And they're saying that he needs to be arrested and prosecuted. We do not know the status of the rider himself. But Eric, maybe as we reflect on this, what then can be done? Because especially areas in the lowlands, not just in Nakuru, but also downstream, if you talk about the coastal area, Tana River, for example, always experiences this situation every time there's heavy rain. And they have been complaining that the spilling dams are part of the challenge. Yeah. How can such counties plan differently, knowing that it's almost assured that every rainy season there will be such calamities? The
way we can be able to resolve this is through the use of dikes and embankments, because we are clear that people will need a place where they can be able to settle. And it may be difficult to say that a given area you cannot have people settling there. If you look at countries like Netherlands, they've been able to really deal with and control the waters to the extent that they have even increased the size of their countries by using these dikes and embankments. And we have also seen that in areas like the Yala, they had to move the river so as to stop the perennial flooding that used to happen around the Yala swamp. So there are engineering solutions that can actually be put forth. These may not be things that counties may meet directly through their budget. So it may require that the national government does some proper plan for those particular areas that are perennially flooding. You've talked about Tana River, Budalangi, Nyando, and the rest, so that they can be able to control such areas.
Right. Okay. So any considerations that you might be looking at, Senator Nyoto and Honorable Martha, especially in Parliament, knowing of what this has been? I see a report saying that the Deputy President is citing that the death toll from Mai Mahiu could have risen to 71. You're speaking to Inooro FM via phone, and the people that are missing are 90 so far. Any expectations in as far as what Parliament can do from now?
I think, first of all, if those are the current figures, it's really, I would say, the worst we have seen. And I saw from your report, you had reported 76 missing, and you know, the sad thing is that majority are women and children. And I say that because normally you'll find the men are out at work and the families are left at home. So you'll find the majority of these are women and children. And it's quite a sad situation. But I think, like I had said earlier, of course, this should be discussed in Parliament, one way or another, either through motions of adjournment, through statements, whatever it is, it should be discussed. And I think eventually it should be almost get to a level where it is considered a national disaster, to that level. And that is to say, like, pause everything, let us deal with this disaster until it is done. But again, it has to take what I spoke about, the all-nation approach. If you look at the photos we have in our newspapers, you see a road cut off in Turkana. It doesn't matter where, if something is happening. So, like Eric says, and I had indicated earlier, like a place where we had a problem in Gilgil, we used through Kenha, not through the county, to make proper drainage. So Kenya must come in for the roads especially. Kenya Railways must come in because of the rail lines and look around the country, even the old lines that are not in use, to be able to know where the danger points are. But I think the most important one is Ngao. Let us have the responses from the ground. Every DCC, like CS Kindiki has directed, must give a report every morning to say, in my area, I have 2 dams, private dams, I've engaged these ones, give a report so that we're able to even make policy determinations, even for schools. Because even as we go to next week, CS Mashogu has said schools will open next week. But imagine the rains continue. What happens? Do we then still go on? Or do we wait again and to do it at night or to do it at whatever point? So that we have better plan. These reports must be the ones that actually give that, that responsibility and give the information to the CS to make that determination. But I think the president has already said he's on it, hands-on, and he's getting briefs every day. And I think the deputy president is on the ground, so the presidency is also involved. The counties must also be involved. And in any case, in this GAO and NIS reports, the counties also report. The county police commander will report, the county NIS officer will report, so that we are able to know exactly from every corner of this country how much or what is being done. But I think in Parliament, you of course expect it will be there today, tomorrow is a holiday, but I think we'll expect it to show up as a major discussion in Parliament.
All right, Senator Nyoto, even as we reflect on the decision by CS Ezekiel Machogu to postpone the schools reopening, of course, a lot of hue and cry among stakeholders, especially because of the late night release of that statement. But moving forward, the Cabinet Secretary, or the ministry rather, because the letters were signed by Bilio Kipsang, the PS, they are saying that every school has to update on the mitigation plans they are taking against the floods. How do we coordinate that? And what do we do to make sure that once schools reopen, indeed, the learners and the staff will be safe?
Thank you, Sam. In fact, let me say that this announcement by the ministry, this announcement on postponement of the opening date, I would say it was not timely. It should have come earlier, if at all. His Excellency the Deputy President had said something that I think was very important. He had said that the reopening of schools would be done on a need-to-need basis. That schools that may not be affected by these floods could still reopen yesterday, but then those that were affected, some measures would be taken. They would delay. But talking of coordination of these reports by the officers, I think the government has a good structure, the ministry has a good structure, because in every other sub-county, we have a sub-county director of education who also has some area, some zonal, I mean, they also have some zones within every sub-county, and they are also zonal officers of education in every other zone in the sub-county. And so collection and reporting of information on the impact of floods on schools should not be a problem. The problem would then be how to act on the information so collected and reported. But collection and reporting, the structure is well laid, and I can tell you is very effective. So what needs to be done, like Honorable Mother is saying, is that multi-agency approach, so that the Ministry of Education has this data on which schools are affected, what is happening where, in which school, and then there is that other agency that deals with the problem. Because the Ministry of Education can only advise in this case. It cannot do anything about this disaster. It can only advise on the safety or otherwise of learners and the situation in various institutions of learning. So a multi-agency approach will be the thing for me.
Right, and Eric, so if you look at some of the images of devastation, most people who are being rescued, they're being taken to schools. But also some schools are not safe. If the case of Mathare constituency is anything to go by, some of them have been affected, destroyed walls. These are schools that have existed for so long. So what is that we need to do as a country? Because yes, there are people that had built next to the river. but also schools that now are increasingly becoming at risk. How do you reorganize that for the sake of safety? Because it appears that we may experience more adverse weather conditions even in the future.
I think we are not seeing a proper disaster response. We should also be currently looking at the mitigation factors. Why I'm saying that we are not seeing a proper disaster response is that you still have, say, sections of roads which are flooded. And you find that a simple solution like removing a stone would allow the water to flow. So if, for example, if you're taking Nairobi, why don't we have an active team that is there 24/7 that can ensure that if there's a call that has been received, they will rush to that place and sort out the particular problem. That can help with sorting out problems that are coming from time to time. What we now need to do is to map out the hotspots, because we know the potential areas where we can have disasters. We can map out all those hotspots, and then we can ensure that we put in resources around those hotspots to take care of any likely disaster. And these hotspots would be something that would potentially be there in a database that could ensure that year in, year out, we are monitoring those areas and ensuring that appropriate action is taken when a disaster actually happens. And in those hotspots, you can also identify safe zones where, if a disaster occurs, where can people be taken, where they can be in a safe environment until that particular issue is sorted out. Currently, as it is, we may not be having a true picture of what is happening in the country. And that's why mapping can be able to come out. And we have satellite images. We have images, satellite companies that are imaging the Earth on a daily basis. So we can already have an image of the country, and we can see areas which have been affected.
Is this available to the government?
Yes. They can be able to make purchases of it. They are,
and how do you respond to what she was saying, that in some of these counties it's difficult to allocate money for what cannot be seen? I mean, how do you make that become a need?
What she is saying is true, because people want to see something that is tangible. And some of these things are scientific in nature. Not that they are not important, but generally they would help in the way we actually order our life. So some of them can actually be undertaken at the national space, because there is more understanding in terms of disaster response and how to mitigate those kind of disasters. But I think education, capacity building, especially for the MCAs, because they are very critical at that level at the county in deciding on certain budgets.
Right.
For example, yesterday I was in another county, and the MCAs are questioning why the county should have an electronic land information management system. And they're not understanding that this kind of a system would actually be very useful in a disaster situation, because we would be able to know that the following land parcels that have been affected, the number of households who are living in those particular land parcels, the number of houses, and so on and so forth. And we can be able to develop a lot of metrics that would help in getting the required resources to assist in those kind of areas. So training and capacity building, and maybe the Senate can come in quite clearly on that, to educate the member of counties assemblies, so that they have an understanding and they can be able to push for these kind of budgets or allocations.
Actually, the capacity building, I'll say, is for both levels. And I say that because I've seen some, even government institutions that do the geospatial mapping, like the NIS, I've seen, but still you'll find even in us in Parliament frowning at it, that you have put so much money you know, in it. And yet we have other pressing issues. So I think the capacity building is on all levels of government and more sensitization to the public, because we respond to the public. And if you ask these questions, if you see the MCAs asking, is because they are put under pressure, because money was put in something we can't see, and we need roads, we need dispensaries. So the pressure comes from the ground.
And then
I
the roads are destroyed by the rain.
They are also destroyed by the rains. So I think it is for all of us, so that we also understand it better.
Okay. All right. The appreciation of science and technology. And you see, the reason I'm asking that question, Eric, is because the Meteorological Department has been giving reports for a very long time over the years, different governments. As late as Thursday, there was a notification, a forecast of intensity of the rain stretching up to 28th. And there were warnings that it was going to flood, and people are being advised on what they can do. But still, we are caught off guard. And that is both at the citizenry level, but also at the government level. So there's quite some work to do here. I want us to take a look at the feedback that has come to us at Citizen TV Kenya. Sam Gituku, the hashtag to use is a daybreak on what Kenyans are saying this morning. And as we do that, I was also looking at the Constitution, Article 96, the favorite chapter, I mean article for
Parliament.
Newto. Let me just take a look at it. It says the role of the Senate. The Senate represents the counties and serves to protect the interests of the counties and their government. The Senate participates in the lawmaking function of Parliament by considering, debating, and approving bills concerning counties. The Senate determines the allocation of national revenue among counties as provided in Article 217 and exercises oversight over national revenue allocated to the county government. And then the Senate participates in the oversight of state officers by considering and determining any resolution to remove the president or deputy president from office in accordance with Article 145. So those are the key functions of the Senate, or the role, if you call it. Duncan 254 is saying that the African rock star dispatched CSS. We can't read that. Sir Nixon Dugire is saying that I think some of the biggest challenges, especially in averting management of disasters in Kenya, is the government's poor planning, misplaced priorities, as well as ignorance of great ideas by great professionals of how things ought to be done. Frank Orinda is saying that government response to the floods menace is poor, a clear show of lack of preparedness. The government doesn't trust its own scientists. That's why the forecast and warnings by the MET or Meteorological Department were not taken seriously. Some of the deaths we've witnessed could have been avoided. Brian Chamwa, this time of crisis, the people of Kenya deserve more than mere lip service from their leaders. They need decisive action and robust support to rebuild their lives and communities. Odongo Rolex, the problem we have as a nation is that all the disasters are always ahead of us, hence it gets difficult in controlling them. Kalu Lepario, the devastating floods underscore a dire need for effective disaster risk reduction strategies. The absence of robust preparedness is glaring, and it's time our nation's leadership prioritizes DRR initiatives to mitigate future catastrophes. Timothy Kiturio is saying the president should declare the floods a national disaster and order the KDF and NYS to hit the ground. Trouble is still lacking, and we can't afford to lose people, but that's what you mean. The personnel on the ground are very few. Management of these floods is not up to par. And Remy Butia, counties should activate their flood mitigation measures in flood-prone areas to cushion residents against losses and damages to property, as well as implement prompt responses where required. Now, I was taking a look at what would appear like academic description of disaster management, and it would start with risk assessment, development of a disaster management plan, establishing communication protocols, training and exercises, collaboration with external partners, establishing community plans, and review and update regularly, whatever that plan should be. I'm sure there must be a document on how disaster preparedness and management should be. Maybe we need to leave some of those documents.
It could be a whole course.
Sorry?
It could be actually
unit.
a whole unit.
A whole unit,
University.
yeah. So there's work to be done.
There is,
Challenges are clear, and one can only hope that we'll do more to ensure that when the next rains fall, when the next disaster happens, we'll be better prepared to at least save lives and property.
Definitely.
Senator John Nyoto, thank you so much. Eric Nyadimo from Institution of Surveyors of Kenya, thank you so much. As well as Honorable Martha Wangari from Gilgil constituency for making time for us. Now, Senator Richard Onyonka was to join us. He hasn't. We'll reach out to him to just be sure that he's safe. My name is Sam Gituko. See you again some other time.